Welcome back, let's get started. So case-sensitive letters in symbolic notation. Why is it so important? Well, the element symbols are case-sensitive. Just like most of your internet passwords, if you accidentally use a capital instead of a lowercase letter, your service may reject that password. It's really important. Same thing happens in chemistry, where a symbol or the way you write it may be acceptable or not, depending if you have used your uppercase and lowercase letters correctly. And that is because every symbol, every element symbol that comes off the periodic table begins with a capital letter. And if it's more than one letter long, the rest of them will be lowercase. Just like your first name will have a capital letter and then the rest are in lowercase. Very important. So let's look at an example here. So I've got hydrogen. It's got a capital letter H. It's just one letter long, so that's all it requires. Helium, He. Notice how the E is a lowercase letter because it's the second one that follows afterwards. And calcium also, capital C, lowercase a. But why should we care so much about the uppercase and lowercase letters? Where do things go wrong if we aren't careful? Well, you see on the periodic table, many of the elements share the same letter of the alphabet in their symbols, and therefore it can get very confusing trying to distinguish one from the other if you see them all bunched together in a formula. If you don't know what a formula is, I'll tell you at the end of the video series. But for now, just a package of all these letters together. So let's have a look at an example. So here I've just got some very similar looking formulas, but they mean entirely different things. So the first example, you can see that it's got CuCO3. How many ways can it go horribly wrong? So Cu, if you go to a periodic table of elements, that is the symbol for copper. Capital C by itself, that's the symbol for carbon. And capital O is a symbol for oxygen. Now there's a little 3 down here. Don't worry about it for now. We'll answer what that little 3 means in another video very shortly. Now, if we look at the example below that, we've got capital C, capital U, capital C, followed by lowercase o. And that breaks down completely differently. So we've got carbon, uranium, and cobalt, completely different elements. Okay, it's so important that we get our capital and lowercase letters correct because they can look very similar to each other and we can get very confused. And obviously the last example, I've got carbon, uranium, carbon, and oxygen. So let's put this into practice. I'm just going to clear this layer. Make a new layer here. We're going to practice identifying what elements this formula is made out of. I know it's not a real formula. It's just something I've made up for practice purposes. So if we take the fact that every element symbol starts with a capital letter, that's what I'm going to be looking for to distinguish where the breaks are in this formula. So I can see capital C followed by lowercase o. And then after that starts another capital letter. That means that CO must belong to a particular element. And that, in fact, belongs to cobalt down there. The next one here, capital C, lowercase u. So again, we got another break in the chain. So Cu must be a different element. So that one there is copper, which is right here in the periodic table. I've got capital C, capital C. Now, I've got 2 capital letters stacked side by side. That tells to me that the first capital letter is probably all by himself. So that one there is carbon. So that's from this part of the periodic table. Following on, capital C, and it looks like an I. It's supposed to be a lowercase l. I should have used a better font. But C with a lowercase l next to it, and then another capital C moving onwards. So I break it again. Cl, that's actually chlorine from that part of the periodic table. And I'll just keep going. Chromium, carbon, calcium, and curium. So you can tell what the elements are in a formula, especially if they share many of the same letters, just looking out for those capitals, which begin the new symbol. All right, next video, we are going to focus on the little numbers that I mentioned just a bit earlier.